answer from it?
Yeah, they were probably the 8th is, they will probably travel and somehow I didn't get. I'll write them, because there should have been. Was music in here when we came in at 3 o'clock or 3:30? It's possible that just it fell through the cracks.
That's why I was asking questions like, should this just happen automatically?
Normally I issue a ballot and then I'll schedule a phone chat. Learn everything I know. Yeah, they haven't put you on the, where he was commenting or something, that way, so the vote doesn't count. Okay, so-
So you got your cord.
Yeah, I can do that.
Hmm?
No,
So
I
you
issued the
had
ballot.
just
I
forgotten
issued
your
the
cord.
ballot.
Huh?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, no,
But they never put it on the phone chat, so I'm
no, the whole thing.
Hmm.
not gonna CC you. Just because I'm a big. Not because. Yes, please. Sure. Thanks for pointing that out, because I didn't get that. And it's just magic, right? Magic happens. So you can see the ballot, there's no technology.
Today has been the day that jet lag hit me.
Oh,
Yeah, you stop it.
third day is usually the worst for me.
Now you used to travel east. I usually travel west. And it's usually the first day and then it's over. This time.
East is worse. Although this to me was neither. This was 12 hours, whichever way you went.
One less thing to read in a future date. This is the key. This is the key. Just
So let's get started. Now we seem to have our co-chair online. Hi, AJ. And if I can find my the right tab again. Here we go.
How are you doing?
So anyway, let's get the formalities over with. We have the usual suspects. I'm missing Mark at the moment, but
I believe Mark is ill.
yeah.
Mark did not show up for the last show.
And so we might have to wing it. Oh well. I know what they plan to do, and so we'll just do it. Note well, it's Tuesday, so everyone who cannot recite this by heart should read it again. I mean, if you mess up, then your company lawyers might be very unhappy with you, especially about the patent stuff. But I mean, play by the rules is the first slide. be a nice person is the second slide. If you do both of those, you're doing well. Yeah. And we have the ombudsperson in the room. So if you want to complain about someone harassing you by disagreeing with you, even though you've stated the truth, and well, you know who to talk to. Well, we'll see. So, meeting tips, as usual. Sign in, because otherwise you're officially not here. And we refuse to speak to people who are not present. So, and remote participants, don't start talking until I tell you to, or whatever. Nowadays, echo cancellation is so fantastically effective that you don't really have to use a headset. But anyway, it's a good thing to have. Yeah. So today's agenda: volunteer for Scribe. Jonathan has allowed us to quickly bypass this point by just pointing at him. Oh shit. Oh yeah. So previous slides, as mentioned, we're not going to bash that, but other stuff that we want to have on the agenda. Rahul mentioned that he wanted to talk about whether we should have more extensive negotiations in this group. And so we'll put that after his session on incomplete and non-existent registration templates, if that's okay with everyone. No objections? We go on. So that's a working document. I gave that 5 minutes because there's not that much to say. 6838 bis. I mean, Mark said that he would be here, but he likely not to be. So he said what he wanted to do was to just project the issue tracker on the screen and look at the issues one by one. And I think we can do that. And then we'll just tell him what we decided without him. He'll be so happy. And Magnus is going to talk about RTP-related information in the registry. And Rahul is going to say something about what is found out about incomplete and non-existent registration templates. And then we take the item about more extensive negotiation mechanisms. And then we'll just have to figure out what we need to wrap up. That sounds like a good agenda to you? No protests, no change. Let's go. So draft IETF internet drafts. Top level and has finally been approved by all authors, all one authors. And the RFC editor claims that it's now going to come out of the queue like today or tomorrow or something like that. They've been working on it while in Bangkok. So that will also free up top level, which has been waiting for that as an arbitrary reference. So we should have 2 RFCs to the credit of this working group after so many years. Yeah, think take time. We have we decided not to publish suffixes or standard trees, so they have done the quiet thing and just expired after 6 months. But we have an active draft with an active repository called 6838bis. And that's all we have. Hurry. So that's the same status. The editors of Pete, do you want to speak for the editors of that one?
The short answer is I really can't, because I've not been keeping up with the work on this. Mark has been doing well in the background, and I've been engaged in other things at the moment. So I'm going to let you do whatever projecting, and I will be seeing these, at least half of them, as fresh as you are.
That's how it goes. So we have, let's see if we can make this work. This may or may not work. GitHub. Let me see if that was the right slide. Ah. Yeah, that was the right slide, but we'll see if we can. The GitHub.com. There we go. And let's see if we can then switch to share screen. Stop sharing slides, share screen. Yes, I want to share screen. And I can choose a tab to share. That's a nice thing, that you can share a tab even though the prompt says you share screen. So you don't see all the little strange boxes I have on my other tabs. So we have 4 pull requests. It's adding the standards tree. It's adding top level, structural suffixes. That's the draft in, and some cleanup for additional information. And let's see if we can project them one at a time. So AJ says that he has an OR13. Is that Ori? Yep. Guilty as charged. They have both approved this this thing. I mean, it's a fairly massive. Oh, it's not. So it's basically taking the standards tree draft and saying, okay, this is now part of the spec. Now, has anyone had any objection to merging this one? I think we all more or less seen the text before. I hear silence, and I have approvals. I'll do this just to. Approved in the working group meeting. Confirm merge. That's how you fly. So if Mark didn't want, well, so the same thing for top level. So Mark says that the IANA instructions will be published in a separate RFC, so that's not needed. History and introduction shouldn't be needed for this document. What? We'll go into publish top level as an RFC. So so that's a nice way of, since RFCs never go away, we can say that, okay, history is preserved. So I have one comment from Ori, which led to a change. No other comments. Let's see. This is more or less the text from top level. It's actually not very much text. It's just the normative part of top level. So, any objections to merging this one? Any comments that need to be resolved? Hearing none. AJ and Ori have approved. Well, so I'll just merge this one too. What?
You say. Your comment.
Yeah. Whatever. I can comment more on it.
You just don't stutter. That's okay.
So I mean, merging this stuff is no barrier to discussing them further. But in order to do that, we have to raise an issue on the merge text. So the line on structural suffix was rough in. So Manu liked it. Oh yes, sorry about that. I'm doing that because that's what I always do, but I forget that I'm projecting. Yeah, that's one that's one. I think that I think there are open issues on this one. Or this particular comment is we shouldn't say must not and not recommended on the same thing. So so let's hold this for a little bit. And Ori pointed out the part about suffixes that always made me nervous about giving the first register of a semantic the power to deny other suffixes. So anyone want to comment on that one? Just put in a comment there. What?
Registrar?
Yeah, why not? Usually we do registrant in English, but that's okay. We understand what you mean.
Those grammar people. Yeah. So shall we say hold for more review? So that's and and the last one is the only one that's not by the editor. Who's Paul X? Paul Ibrecht. He suggests that we should take out the part that says Mac OS file type codes, which haven't been used for like 20 years, and put in Mac OS uniform type identifier and Windows clipboard names, which are apparently in use. Shall we do that? Pete Resnick is going to the microphone.
This is Pete. I think this makes perfect sense. Certainly the removal of macOS file type, they are just, it's a nice piece of history, but that's all it is. Putting in the current clipboard and macOS types for Windows and Mac seems fine. Do we think that we have any good chance of getting these filled in for older things in the registry?
I think we'll
I mean, I do think it's useful information.
should be included if it's available. So Rahul, under Rahul's item on old registration, we might pick up that question too.
Yeah, given that, I think it's perfectly reasonable to do.
Yep. Okay.
John from Linux, I'm wondering if there's anything equivalent for the mobile operating systems. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if iOS is the same as Mac, but I don't know that it is, and I don't know what Android does at all.
I don't know how Android does it. Comments and merge.
I think that's actually worth putting in the comment as well, is we want to make sure that the basic bunch that are currently in use, so in, thought that we should put in whatever other types, for example, iOS, Android, if they are different. Platforms, yeah.
Updated comment, but this one is sensible. We should go on. Confirm merge. So then we're down to one whole pull request. That's nice. Then we can look at issues. So switching sort direction to oldest. cleanup for additional information. That's yes. This is- I think we should raise new issues for the topics that were mentioned. It's PRs in GitHub, CLs in Get It. That's just keep them straight. Close with comments. I like closing the issues. Yeah, I mean, close one, raise two. That's it. Yeah. Incorporate suffixes, that's still open. Grandfathering requirements should apply to all unregistered media types. That's Rahul's comment. I think we'll discuss that in under his item. Let me see. If I use the back button, will I keep my ordering? Higher bar for IETF registrations than for external ones. Let me see what that thread. Yeah. Specifications in the standards tree require ISG approval, it says. Is that the correct interpretation?
Yes.
Ori?
Alexei, I think that was by design, especially if you're doing standards track document, you really want it to be approved by ISG. Do we really want to go into that, like, if I register something in historic or experimental, should it have a lower bar? Well, exactly. That's kind of exactly like the Pete shrugging of the shoulders that I was.
So this is Pete. The idea here, as I remember the history of it, is that for things in the standards tree, it needs standards level approval, which is the IESG always. If it's coming from an outside recognized standards body, which the IESG is approved as an outside recognized standards body, then some other standards level entity is approving it. And therefore it can go into the standards tree. So it's not actually a lower bar for outside ones. It's that the IESG has approved another standards body to be at the same bar.
Yeah, so what speaks against this interpretation is, of course, the fact that we have registered types that are at are in ISO documents that are at the pre-approval stage,
Right.
which is
Yeah, that's an early registration, as Alexei said.
yeah. So do we have a procedure for early registration?
I believe there is a INABIS working group that is going to be formed that will be talking about this. I think it's a separate RFC. Sometimes there is an interesting interaction between, complicated registration rules and early allocations. So I cannot answer, do we allow prohibited here actually? So I cannot say, I don't remember.
Yeah. Then they go back to the what? Yep. I'll just say my comment on. Yes, a thread.
Yeah, there's no drafts allowed.
Yep. So I think we should mutate this thing into mutate or raise a new issues. Yeah. So yes, this is new issue. New issues as should we have an early registration procedure? I'll have to go through these comments on. Yeah, because it's not a registration. It's just yeah. Creating a new issue, but I'm going to do that after the meeting. You're in queue?
I am in queue. This is also the issue I filed, and the background on this is, again, going back to what was perceived as a registration made by the W3C that was able to basically race in a different registration that was coming out of the IETF competing for the same namespace. And I don't know, I feel like there was some agreement previously that this was something that we didn't want to actually explicitly sort of endorse. And I'm feeling like the conversations that are taking place here feels totally disjoint from previous things. And there's also content in the last pull request incorporating the multiple suffix stocks that seems to be entirely disjoint from any of the conversations we had in the media type meeting in the last event. So I'm not sure, like, I don't think this is the right situation, and I think we should fix it. But if
So I think you're driving at another new issue, which is that other organizations have been perhaps raising their own process.
no, I'm driving at the issue that it was allowed for another organization to race our process while we had to sit around and wait. We being participants of the IETF, I know it's not a monolith. Myself personally, working in another working group that had a pending registration request in a draft and was told that I had to wait on that while a less mature document in another organization was able to complete the registrations because it's an approved standards organization. So that's what I was trying to address here, and this doesn't touch any of it.
Yeah, so the less mature bit is the one I was thinking about as raising, because the WTC document was at what, working draft? Candidate recommendation. Yeah. So it hadn't made it to PR, which is
It was
more or
very
less
early and unstable, and it actually changed a few days before the registration was made.
So that's another issue to take up. I mean, yeah. So the rules, so we settled this one that the rules are as they are at the moment, which made you and which set up a situation that made your working group very unhappy. And so we should discuss about whether we should change the rules, either by saying that the other standards organizations need to have rules about what maturity they require, or by doing an allocation process that makes it possible for names to be pre-reserved for things that haven't passed the ISG yet. Is that adequate addressing them?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay, so new issues will be filed. Let me see. We have AJ on the queue.
Yeah,
I'm forgetting to. So, AJ.
I was just going to say, I don't know if I can speak for Mark or Pete, who's in the chat. My presumption about how the issue is written from a procedural point of view is, and I see, Ryan, that you commented on it, was to literally incorporate the text verbatim as is and expect that this fine working group would, by issues and pull requests, further iterate on the content. It seems like as a working group, we still need to do that outside of, I enjoy this kind of working group meeting where we literally go through PRs, but I assume more of that has to happen outside of the IETF 2022 session. I thought that had very being said. That's it.
Yep. So, and we have Michael Jones on the queue.
Hi. A couple points to the issue that Brian was talking about. I mean, I was in that working group in the W3C. I disagreed with what they were doing. I tried to stop it. All that as a pretext. Procedurally, they were in the right, according to the liaison between the liaison agreement between MEDIAMAN and the W3C. Once something has reached candidate recommendation status, they're entitled to request registration. Whether they should have tried to register those values, I think was wrong, but procedurally they were in the right. I am going to say one other thing, which I'll take to the IANA-BIS discussions. I think it's critical for us to enable other organizations that are accredited standards body to register things in some form before the specs are 100% final. That way they get the same benefit of review by the designated experts that IETF specs get before they're final. And to the extent that we're letting other specs use our registries, we should afford them the same opportunity to correct their text that we give our own specs. Thank you.
This is Pete. I just read over RFC 7120, which is the early allocation spec. And as far as I could tell, this was just a missed opportunity that an early allocation could have been done for the one that was being worked on in the IETF with the approval of working group chairs and the ADs. And it would have just been put into the registry and held, and would have precluded the outside organization from registering it. So what is it? Bad cases make bad law kind of thing. I don't think we want to change the process here. We want to make sure that people are aware of the process and it gets used correctly. So
I didn't know we had an early allocation process.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Okay, then we have some
Yeah,
comments on
Jonathan,
that.
so what we just said off mic is that this document should explicitly call out 7120 so people know it exists, and
Yeah.
change the wording if it says you must wait for full approval before you can register something.
I just invited her up, but I'm closer. Just a quick note, 7120 is in charter for IANABIS to get updated. So if we have any changes that we want to make to that relevant to this, please talk to those chairs, one of whom shortly will be me. I was simply gestating. I was not pointing at Alexi like I am.
Well, I just want to note that specification required, and of course, everything that requires an RFC for IETF documents, those are all subject to early allocation. We'd send them to an expert for review. So I'm not clear on why that would be an issue. I think we've been actually we've been asked for that in the past, and we're told that provisional should be used instead. That's what happened.
And I think that's probably right in most cases. I think in this particular case, the AD probably would have noticed that this fishiness was going on between W3C and IETF, and probably would have said, this is the appropriate time to use that early allocation procedure and stick it in the standards tree. But again, this was a weird case to begin with. So I don't think, you know, in the normal course of things, this would necessarily need to be used. But the procedures there, it could be used for this kind of thing.
So let's go on.
I am on the queue again. I just, having gone through this whole thing, it would have been nice if an AD told me, or if any time during any of this process, someone had some meaningful, helpful suggestion as a path forward other than go read this esoteric bit of this RFC or something. And
I mean,
well, and then maybe when it comes up here, it's something other than that's the process, or we defer to that, or I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's extraordinarily frustrating, and it makes me not want to participate in this process. I don't know what to do with that. I know no one likes to hear it, but thanks.
This is Pete again. No, completely agreed. This was a screw up. This was a failure of either the working group chairs or the IASG or the AD in charge to notice that this was going on. That's really bad. Well, no, but to understand that there was a way to avoid it, right? I mean, that was a screw up on leadership, and wasn't your fault by any means. And you shouldn't be expected to know this. And, you know, that document 7120 was not updated that long ago that this should be absolutely meaningless to people in leadership. They've got to keep track of that. So, you know, let's talk offline about maybe possibilities for fixing this, because there is that possibility. We have an appeals mechanism. And understood.
I was actually told that the appeals mechanism expired, so
let's talk afterwards and see. But I understand the.
I appreciate it. I think for my motion, I'm sorry.
You know, just so others can hear.
For the record, thank you. I appreciate that because that's about the closest thing I've gotten to anything like that, frankly. And it's a feeling, so it's not fact. But the feeling on this end is all I've gotten in this entire issue has basically been told to go take a hike. And from the perspective of someone that's trying to do work in this organization, trying to work with an organization that supposedly supports work in this organization, it seemed like there was a lot of buck passing and preference not given to, but just opened up and given to an entirely different organization because there's some things I don't understand, and liaison agreements I don't understand or anything. It's just very frustrating. And the content of this meeting, after having all those experiences and after the entire previous discussion in the MEDIAMAN meeting in person in the last event, is only further frustrating. So maybe we can talk sometime, but I'm going to say that. And
So one of the interesting hard parts about having an organization with rules is that you cannot change the rules while we have the problem. So we have to solve problems that occur, but the process for changing the rules is unfortunately not fast.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
in this particular case, the problem was not that the rules needed to be changed. The problem was that the rules weren't followed internally, and that certain folks didn't understand or know the rules internally and gave really bad advice about how to deal with a particular issue. So, you know, that's a different order of problem that's going on.
Yes.
I think this group, you know, there should have been enough brain cells to put together to go, oh, there's the solution. And again, I think this points to Jonathan's, earlier comment that when we've got this nice instruction book of how to do these registrations, part of it has got to point to the thing that says, by the way, there's this early allocation procedure, and it should be used when it is appropriate.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm probably not going to make you feel any better, but I actually didn't know that the early allocation would apply. So even me being a designated expert, the rules are so complicated for the base spec. So, but then again, nobody actually even asked us about, whether it would or wouldn't apply, which would have kicked in at least the discussion or maybe investigation whether it would. So, yeah, again, sorry that kind of happened to you.
we do have rules written down. I'm used to following. I have worked in this organization in different working groups for over a decade. I know that's not as long as many, but I'm used to following bespoke, difficult, esoteric rules. And I was unable to navigate this process. Apparently, I'm not alone. I think that is maybe an indication of a problem in itself. And
Yep.
That's what we're trying to fix here.
Okay, thank you. It doesn't feel like it. It feels like I'm being told.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna.
I mean, this working group is not able to fix your problem. This working group is trying to make it so that this kind of problem never happens to you again.
Okay, I appreciate it. I didn't get that sense from.
Possibilities for fixing your problem.
Well,
And it may be water,
it's long since passed.
But
I certainly interpreted the comments here is it's not like tough for you. It was more like you have our sincere sympathy. It's something we want to fix.
Okay, thank you. I did not interpret them that way.
Let me see. Brian is
Yeah,
on
is Brian out dumb in the queue?
okay. No, Rahul is on the queue.
Yeah, I should have unqueued.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We had I was forgetting to watch the queue because I was watching the interplay. Sorry. Rahul is on the list.
He plans to go ahead.
Ahead of Mike.
Doesn't Mike can go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not a problem.
I just final comment and I'll quit. While the unfortunate situation with the verifiable credentials working group in the W3C happened to do with a media type, the fix to the rules has to be really to the IANA procedures, because this could have just as easily happened with any other registry. So it's fine to be talking about what happened here because it was a media type, but the fix isn't here. The fix is in IANA BIS.
Rahul Gupta. I'm going to make a slightly more philosophical point. All the procedures we have, the way we do rules, we write RFCs are based on the medium of paper that you have some rules, then you have add more rules, and you have add more rules. It's not that you have what is the current set of rules today, all the rules consolidated in one place, derived from those documents. And as long as we keep using the paper method for solving digital problems, we are going to hit this problem again and again.
That's why we're obsoleting 6838, not patching it. Okay.
Can I just quick comment on this? I think it's slightly more complicated than you presented, because we have a set of standard rules which typically applies, and then we have a set of registries that have very complicated rules. So like media types is a very special case.
Ultimately, the person
Sure.
you should get like all the rules together, or the person.
The persons online cannot hear you when you don't speak to the mic.
Sorry, what I'm saying is the designated expert or the person who wants to do the registration needs to have the current set of rules, not all these documents to dig through.
Yep. Okay, let's move on to issue number 9. Can person for further info be an IETF working group or mailing list? I think the discussion ended up saying yes. The discussion on the issue, with the caveat that any pointer to anything that might change needs to be, well, changeable. So should we mark this as ready for PR? I'm going to do it if nobody says anything. Okay, Johnson is saying something.
John's next. Sorry, I didn't put it in the queue. I mean, working groups don't last forever. I mean, people don't last forever either, but you know, hopefully longer than working groups. So, except for AVT, yes. Yeah, I mean, generally we expect a working group cycle to be something, you know, at least for many working groups, something that goes for a little while then closes. Now, I mean, if it's one of these works that does last forever, maybe it can be, but there needs to be some judgment here about that and understanding what happens when a working group or mailing list does close.
But when I was IETF chair, I was arguing for changing working groups that live forever into something called a review team. But nobody else liked it, so the idea died. So to update.
If I have a question right now, do I have to wait for that process to finish?
Let me see. Do you have a question to the issue?
No, no, I'm saying, you're saying if they're not spread, we need a procedure to update the pointer when they're defunct. So the procedure might take a week or two, but I have a question I need to answer right now.
Well,
I guess what I'm thinking is, in the absence of a new thing, while that process is running, should we say you route them to the IESG until that's resolved, or something like that? I can make more work for the ISG now that I'm leaving it.
so
Sorry.
if the pointer, if the registration is by MPEG, should we say that the fallback is the chair of MPEG?
What if MPEG closes? That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So if MPEG closes, then I think the next point up is the chair of the ISO or
Chair of
possibly ISO
ISOC.
IC. No, MPEG is outside of IETF. Remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So it's entirely outside our process where the fallback should go.
Right. So you're saying if it's MPEG, MPEG has to provide the procedure to resolve a dead pointer, not we have to provide the procedure, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Can I add to this because it's related to the MPEG thing? MPEG was registered, I believe, by IETF or IESG originally. So even in cases where the original, if MPEG were to fall away, does it still remain with ISO or does it come back to IESG?
That's not a good question.
Yeah, Magnus Westland. I mean, I will just note that, I mean, in the case of the change controller, all the RTP payload formats kind of has been pointing to the ISG, but delegated to AVT or AVT core basically as long as it exists. So that's how we deal with the change controller, and that's, I think, the person of interest has been, or for information, has been the authors so far, but.
So I think this. So should we put this on as for needs more discussion, or should we say someone should write up a PR? Okay, I'll leave it as
chair hat off. I would say hammer out things in discussion in the GitHub issue where people can make a PR and then people can agree or disagree with the changes, right?
Okay. Yes. How time flies. Let me see. We actually had a one. We actually ended up with a 1.5 hour time slot. Yep. Yep. So, yeah. So let me see. Should we close down the 6838 bis discussion? And so we appeals procedure. I wanted to have a brief discussion about that. Okay. Shall we take one stab at the appeals procedure? I serve at the mercy of the working group or the ADS. At the pleasure of the AD and the mercy of the working group. Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So when we wrote this document originally, we said, okay, 2026 has an appeals procedure. Let's point to that. Oh, shit. Yeah, sorry. And in the last debacle we found that, well, the appeals procedure has a very short time limit, the one in 2026, which has been controversial in the past, but nobody's changed it. And yeah. And so the traditional reading of 2026 has been that you can appeal ISG decisions to the IAB. I don't know, but Murray seemed to indicate that he didn't think that applied here.
Jonathan Lennox, if this is about DEs in general, I feel like this is an IANA BIS problem. Because I mean, I don't see why there's any difference for this DE than any other DE.
But
This doesn't make it an easier problem. No.
no.
It's not our shuffle it elsewhere. Yes.
Yep. Okay, let's take it to Annabis. Okay, then we can stop on this item and say, let's go back.
Oh, it's Roman's problem. Yay.
Let me see, where were we?
Punt to Roman.
Yeah. Yep, Magnus. Shoot. And you have a
I have a slide deck, so
yep, I can
so
present them for you.
yes, good. I'm Magnus Westlund. I'm a former AVT core working group chair. I'm the author of the How to Write an RTP Payload Format, which discuss media types for RTP payload formats. I've been in previous discussions around media types and RTP registry. So apparently not quite done. Let's go to the next slide. I want to provide a little bit of context for what my actual request here is. I mean, RTP uses media types. We have much more parameters than most other stuff. Just an example here with the audio AMR, which is only part of all the parameters that's allowed. I think there's another 3 or 4 at least that you could add. And we have our own addition to the registration process about specific for RTP, what you need to think about. That's documented in RFC 4855. The How to Write an RTP Payload Format goes through, there's something around, there's a set of parameters that's been common across a couple of RTP payload formats. For example, color space for video codecs, etc. That has their own registry under the IANA. But there are 2 things here to think about related to. So, and there's the whole thing that RTP uses media types is a bit specific because we clearly have our own framing and everything, which has resulted in this restriction in usage and encoding considerations being used. One thing that happened quite recently has been, we have had an IANA registry that covers RTP payload formats that are media types that are RTP payload formats. However, that registry has been not working that well. There have been inconsistencies, etc. So AVT Core has decided to close it. We have an RFC that's basically approved for publication. It will come out any day. That closes this registry. So now we come to the actual ask here, in some sense, to the media types registration, etc. it would be good to actually have some explicit indicators of these media types that are RTP payload formats, because they are a bit special, and there are other users out there that wants to ref as kind of media types that are RTP payload formats, and it would be good if they could find them slightly easier. So I think there's two aspects of this. One is, it would be nice to have in the registry a table or a column that said, is this an RTP payload format? Yes, for those that are it. And this is primarily just the visual information. But that problem means, to make it easy to maintain in the future, after we populate it for the current set, would be to also add it to the registration template, so to say, is this media RTP payload format? Yes. So, Alexi.
Question. There is encoding field which allows for value framed.
Yes.
Is it the same thing that you're asking about, or do you ask for more or separate thing?
I asked for something more explicit. I don't know if there's others that would use framed, or if we are the only ones that used framed. I don't know.
I think you're the only ones, but then again, I haven't actually reviewed any of the requests that registered one of these.
No, they usually go through AVT core directly in, or through, for example, 3D PPS register ones, I think directly, which I don't know, hasn't been designated expert.
Okay.
Because,
well, as we're revising the document, I'm sure we can add a Boolean field saying, is it RTP thing? So if we need to. Related to this, it would be very nice on the team of designated expert to have actually an RTP expert, because none of the three of us is.
Okay.
Do we have a volunteer?
Possibly,
yes. Yeah.
My purpose of standing before you is not to make you angry, but I have two suggestions.
Yes, go ahead.
The first one, adding a column that means RTP, has me a little worried, because who else is going to get the idea that they want their own column to say, these are my favorites, and these are my favorites, and these are my favorites. I don't have a better answer. I don't have a better suggestion, except the following, which will make you angry. What about a top level type?
That's
Don't
water under bridge.
change.
That's water under bridge.
Huh? Sorry.
We have 25 years of history with this. We have
I bet
something around 100 types.
Application is older. All right.
Yes,
fine.
but I mean, we have registrations in application, text, audio, video.
Right. Okay. I mean, I said I don't.
And
have
now haptics is coming.
I told you I don't have a better idea. I just have another idea.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
And
No.
and
If
all
we
that
blame
stuff is-
him.
And all that stuff is in 20-year-old code too.
Yeah. So yeah, it's Harald's fault.
Yep. I suggested it to Steve, and he was stupid enough to listen to me.
Yeah. 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 I have one more slide, but that's basically just what's in 4855 when it comes to how we use it. And I talked about this. It's like so. But it sounds like there's nothing possible to at least get in the registration template and possibly column. So then I think we would be happy from AVT side. Pete? Oh,
Can we also, on the IANA page, add the reference to this? If there is no reference to the RFC, we should, because that, again, will help experts, because half of the time it's like, I need to refresh my memory on which documents I should be reading to actually approve something.
Yeah.
So if we have the encoding type frame, we might want to change the rules to say that, and all the current frames are RTP. We might change the rules to say that frame means RFC 4855 applies.
Yeah. So I mean, the current draft of this document do reference 4855, so that's at least there, but it's
So question.
yes.
If this goes into the template, if RTP stuff goes into the template, Is there any reason for the additional column at that point?
Harald, I think you can speak to this because this is how some other bodies have been using this, which was the kind of start of this whole discussion around what created an RFC and killing off the other registry, because other bodies tried to use that and it was incomplete information. And the media types registry is more complete when it comes to which types exists, the actual identifiers, but currently not on which is RTP.
Yeah, we found some types that were registered in one registry and not the other. Yeah, so we decided that having that one registry to rule them all was a better idea. But I mean, you have to be able to look at the registration and see that it describes an RTP format or that it doesn't describe an RTP format. So whether that's a column with RTP in it, or whether that's a tick mark, or whether that's an encoding equals frame, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs more thinking about.
Yep.
Yep.
But I wanted it on the table here, so that
Yep. So, what's your action item? Make a PR or make a proposal?
Yeah, the issue exists already in
Yep.
the table, so I guess it's try to think about if there's a PR for the actual template or Marie.
What about, sorry to Amanda and Serena. I say that a lot. What about, these are all the media types, but then a second table looking exactly the same, like these are the RTP ones. And the only time we would make another table like that is in a weird special case like this where the ISG says, yes, you can have your own private table.
Yeah, that's what we did many years ago, and that's what we found was a stupid idea.
Well, I'm sorry, I missed it then. Why is it stupid?
Because
why is my idea stupid, Harold?
No, because the separate table, I mean the separate registry.
Yeah.
Turned out that some people registered in one registry and not the other registry when they should have registered in both.
Yeah, but if it's
why would it be in both?
Yeah. So there actually we have a number of these, which is both file format and RTP payload formats. Just so you know, remember that. You need both.
Why? I'm totally.
But
there are audio codecs which are used as MIME, for instance, media types.
Yes.
So if someone's going to register audio/foo, if it's used as RTP, it would have to end up in both registries.
Yep. Welcome to complexity. Okay. So Magnus is going to make a suggestion. Thank you. So back to the share slides. Confirm. Incomplete registration templates. Rahul, talk to us.
So I'd opened an issue after IETF 121, where I found that a number of media types did not either have registrations or were registration templates were empty, or they had incomplete registrations. Since then, I've also found things where the registration template is literally the email with the subject line and the name of the person put in as well. So my question is, what's our plan to clean this up?
Alexei is being called to the mic.
Yeah, I did encourage you to register the issue, which is just a way of tracking it. So I think realistically, the answer is we, for some definition of we, should write a draft and actually complete registries, because I'm sure we'll have some bike sheds, or at least possibly disagreements on, what should be in them. So and this is like the basic thing, like text plain and and various other things, right? Some of the basic ones.
Some of them are complicated, like multi-part, where the
Yeah.
situation is you have the original stuff in 2048, and then there have been revisions. And those, how do you track those revisions, and what should I implement when I ultimately implement multi-part?
Well, I know once upon a time I had a delusion that I will start revising 2045 bis after I'm done with email core. And this is going so well. But I think a revision of 2045 and related stuff will probably have completed registration templates. However, we can start with the draft just with the templates, and just we'll see where we can stick them in, or what we do with it.
So Alexei, is that an action item on you?
Yes, but I would like at least one or maybe even two volunteers to help out. So I don't want to do it alone, if possible.
We will, if nobody volunteers here, we'll just ask for volunteers on the mail list and wait until someone shows up. That could take a while.
Absolutely not. I'm unpaid labor here.
We all are.
Not just.
Well, yes. Some of us steal from our employers when it's
Yeah, my employer is not going to pay me more if I register multi-part mix. I'm sorry, but okay.
Meanwhile, since I dragged Amanda and Sabrina here, do we have some instructions for Ayana to update stuff?
I think that's what the draft was supposed to be. We need draft instructions.
Do we also want to add something to 6838 BIS on how in the future we are going to manage when media types are changed as a result of writing a new RFC, for example?
This is Pete. I think that more seriously does turn mostly into an IANA BIS issue, because I do think this is more than about just media types. This is stuff where IANA needs good IANA consideration sections in documents that do that. And the IETF, upon working on those documents and handing them off to the IASG, has to be doing that checking. That's not IANA's responsibility. So I think this is, we can give guidance in the media types document about that, but I think this does have to cut across things and should end up in that IANA BIS document.
Right, just to sneak in. So yeah, whoever updates a media type through another RFC should ask the reference to be added to existing media type at minimum. So it basically update to the registration template, right?
I think that's pretty much what I was going to say. And also, this is not the first time today that we've talked about this actually belongs in IANABIS. So let's make sure that we're sending stuff over to IANABIS that's general about registrations and doing only stuff here that's specific to media type registry. Like if you're going to change a registry about TCP and like that, we don't have to care about that here. Let's just make sure that lands over there. Larger stuff should land over there.
So for stuff that's general for registrations, it's IANABIS. For stuff that's specific to MediaMan, it's here. And the specific item on updating registrations that have been updated, should have been updated, but weren't. That's our problem to find a volunteer to help Alexa with.
And I will say that, you know, all documents in the IASG process end up in front of IANA, and they do a pretty good job of whacking us on the nose when we forget to have decent IANA considerations anyway. So, you know, they usually are there to remind us, this looks like it updates something, you better tell us what to do about this. So that normally happens in the normal process. But it is good as a reminder in the IANABIS document that that's reinforced to authors so they have some place to notice that. And insofar as it's media type specific, we should put something in our document. So I think that's good input, but there are at least levers now that are supposed to make that happen anyway.
So can I ask you something here? What happens when authors are writing, and this is not just an IETF spec thing, somebody else updates whatever registry is updated, how is IANA supposed to get that information if the authors have an oversight?
For non-IETF stuff.
So for non-IETF stuff, are you talking about just a random outside registry to like first come first serve type?
You know, say W3C.
Okay, so yes, we have to deal with that problem as we see, you know, with our earlier example. Supposedly, there should be a set of rules in place to make it clear how that interaction happens. What document is the one that gives permission for named SDOs to do their own registrations?
6838.
6838. So yeah, then we should probably have specific guidance for what happens when updates come across the, well, so let's take your example, W3C registers something and they give, here's our documentation for what this registry is about. Now they make an update to their work. Are you giving the example of they say to IANA, we've updated our thing, or they don't bother to tell us because we haven't told them they need to do that?
Yeah, they've updated, they've published a UCR, and you have the old registry.
That we should file a PR for in 6838 so that it's clear that, you know, they are given instructions that they should keep their registration up to date. I mean, if they don't, I don't know that there's much we can do about it, but I think we should make that clear that there is an expectation that once they make the registration as an SDO, they're responsible for keeping their registration up to date. That seems like a good PR to put in against this.
So I put in a new issue that says instructions for other SDOs on how to maintain registrations with the text. The procedures for IANA to check IETF work on updating specs is working reasonably well. There are no corresponding procedures for other SDOs. They should be advised that they need to have one. Yep. Issue filed.
I think Ori makes a good point. This is what being a change controller is.
Yes.
You own this item. If anything about it changes, it's on you to tell us. And if we need to underscore that in, I don't know, 8126 bis or 6838 bis, we can do that. but this is not something new we have to build. It's already
No.
there, maybe just underappreciated.
I mean, I think the responsibilities of the change controller have been, I don't think they've been specified, but that in detail, but they have certainly been disobeyed.
If I'm saying the mechanism exists, but maybe we need to just like you own this piece of the registry now. This is your problem. If it gets stale, that's on you, not on us. Maybe we just need to say that.
Yeah, and if that pointer goes stale, we have another problem to deal with. Okay. So is that what we can say on this issue? We have 4 minutes left in session. Sorry? Yes, that's also,
That's also
your,
me.
your suggestion.
Okay, this is controversial, and please don't throw brickbats at me if you. So, looking at what happened with suffixes, structured suffixes, I realized there were two things that we were trying to achieve there. One was you had a format and you wanted to extend it little bit in with some extra sprinkles on it, and that was a structured suffix. The other thing that you're using suffixes for is enveloping. And what I'm saying is using a single reference for to identify the content being sent may not be the best route to go. And I have one idea to solve the problem. I'm not necessarily saying this is the right idea to solve the problem, but I just want to open that maybe we should consider some kind of an arithmetic, which is on the pattern of RFC 2912, which was done by the Connect group in the past, where you can specify, okay, the content you're sending is, say, application/VC plus application/SD in brackets and with application/CBOR. And so you'll have, what you do is you don't put the burden on IANA to register all the exact combination of suffixes, but you can mathematically describe, okay, this is the format I want. I know many people don't like that idea. I think Harold had something idea with parameters of doing this, so I'll let him explain that. And it's just, can we have another path to solve the problem other than since structured suffixes failed?
Since my name was called, speaking as a participant, not as a chair, I think that the reason why suffixes failed is because using suffixes in both those modes that you described was a bad idea. The discussion uncovered no case where one could reasonably take action based on a part of the name of a registered type. And you had to have the whole type in order to do anything sensible with it in practice. And therefore, the type should be the description of the format. If you want to have the format described in more detail, that's parameters to the format that are that should be defined in the definition of the format, not a top-level type, or not a MIME type. That was my opinion.
Harold, can I? So to ask you on to discuss this further, what I understood from the rules is that parameters are tied to the original media type registration.
Yes.
Are you first?
However, this would require that there are either arbitrary parameters or the person who did the registration of the media type allow those parameters, which would again run into very similar problems to
the latter.
suffixes.
the latter. I mean, all RTP registrations, for instance, have clock rate as a parameter. Some of them actually have defaults. But those have to be in the registrations. But
Harold, I don't
now-
mean to cut
now
the queue, but we're at 7:30
Yeah. So
or 6:30.
we'll empty the queue, and then I'll say, let's stop, and don't let me talk anymore. All right.
Mike Jones, I disagree that suffixes failed. We use them pretty regularly for JOTs to do explicit typing per the JOT BCP, and there's other uses. What the suffix gives you is the notion that this is of that kind.
Mike, I didn't mean suffixes failed. I meant the structured suffixes draft failed.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts are tied to multiple suffixes and the order of them, which was one of the original questions. Like if I get something that's plus JSON plus tar, what the hell is that, right? So that was a nice short version of the large thing you just described. So if we've discarded this, why is this better?
Because the arithmetic might be more explicit in this, because if you're putting something in a bracket, so if it's say application / link data in brackets and then put JSON and then put in brackets and then put zip, this is kind of explicit in telling what's enveloped inside what in what order.
If I register plus JSON and then plus tar and then plus XML and then I just put a sequence of those, that's the same thing, which we decided we don't want to do, isn't it?
Yeah, but it wasn't clear, again, which mode were you using them? Are you adding a little to the format? Are you enveloping the format?
It was, my interpretation was always that it's a wrapper. So you undo the one on the right, then you undo the next one, then you end up with the middle one. But anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. The discussion actually proved that we couldn't tell. Right. We had sharply different usages, and we had no agreement on what was the correct interpretation. This was one reason why it failed. Okay, we're at time, and we have a number of action items that I hope have been captured in the minutes.
Yep. Harold, can I just add one thing? So I have I'd started a discussion a while back on the mailing list. If you have an opinion, please add to it.
Yep, that's where it should go.
Yep. This is.
If you said something at the mic, check the minutes, make sure I actually wrote down what you think you said.
Hey, this is yours right now. After tomorrow.
Yep.
This working group after tomorrow afternoon passes to Andy. Thanks everybody for a good ride. I will now join you in the ranks of the participants.
Thank you for being AD.
Condolences, Andy. I started this 6 months ago.
Yeah, and then you'll have